Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Looks like we've got a lot of supporters of the grocer, I'm guessing, out in the audience tonight. There you go. Um, Could I ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mike, are we adding the one issue?
Yeah, so you want a motion to amend the agenda to consider the intervention by the township and the pending liens.
So would someone like to make that amendment to the motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'd like to recognize the full council is here with the exception of Mrs. Ferrara, who could not be with us tonight. And there was an executive session held prior to this meeting this evening to discuss a real estate legal matter. Let's go through the reports, if we may. Kyle, Mr. Manager?
None in general. We'll have plenty as we go through the agenda.
Okay. And our solicitor?
Just a note for the, no report otherwise, but to note that the matter that's been added to the agenda, there was a land use appeal from the zoning hearing board decision and the variance application for the O'Hara property. They're requesting an accessory dwelling unit variance. They were denied by the zoning hearing board. They've now appealed that to the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. So the matter that will be for your consideration is to whether to intervene the borough as a party in that proceeding.
Thank you. Chief Holdsworth.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I did submit an electronic version of the report to you this afternoon. Unfortunately, the way the days fall, we weren't able to tabulate all of the month-end stats until this morning. When you do have a chance to review that, if you have any questions, please let me know. A couple of things I would just point out is with May, we had a substantial return to all of our town events with Kennett Run, Cinco de Mayo, Third Thursdays, and the Memorial Day Parade, all of which brought an incredible amount of people into the borough and went off wonderfully. And the other thing I'd point out, I did send this to you, but just to touch base on it, we did get notice from Representative Houlihan that our project for the, excuse me, the Force De-Escalation Initiative has been selected as one of her 15 projects that she's recommending to the Appropriations Committee for funding. And that's about $87,871 for the fiscal year 25.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Are there any brief questions for the chief from anyone in the audience or council? Is there a representative from the Longwood Fire Company? No. And Rob, anything briefly you'd like to share with the audience in terms of some of the big projects going on around town and how they're coming along?
We did finish the Safer Routes project. While wrapping up one of the Oak Street projects.
Which is probably Birch Street?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rob. Finance Committee met on May 16th and reviewed the entire year-to-date budget. Overall, things are looking pretty good. Public Works came in and gave us a very detailed review of the budget. Thanks very much to Denise and Rob. Next month is when we start into our capital planning session for next year. So moving right ahead, overall, the budget's pretty much on track. A couple departments a little high, a couple departments a little low, but still early in the year. So we expect everything to be pretty good shape for this year. Is there a comment from the Development Committee, Kathleen or Tim?
Planning Commission met, our committee met, and there's a few things on the dock. For Harb, which also met this week and then this month, and they are working on an ordinance for ADUs that for us to look at, and they're going to be looking at the what's the other
Short-term rental.
Thank you, short-term rentals. My brain just went.
Thank you very much. And comment from the Public Safety Committee, Mr. Mayor?
We'll address, there's 3 items that we had on our agenda this month. All 3 of them are on the agenda tonight, so I'll speak on those when we hit them. The only thing I would add to that would be that that we met with our emergency management coordinator, who is Sunny, and we've been looking at the updates to the emergency management plan, the document that kind of manages how communications are handled, who's in charge, how things work if there's an emergency. And that document's in the process of being updated in collaboration with the police department, the fire department, and public safety. So we should have that document done probably by the July meeting, I would think, at least to be close to it.
Thank you, Matt. Ellie, anything, or Juan, anything on community relations?
COLA met on May 28th and has an item that's on the agenda tonight. And Human Relations decided to change their schedule to as needed. So they haven't met.
Thank you very much. Infrastructure Committee also met, had a really good meeting with Rob, Denise, and our team to really look hard at the sewer situation in the borough. I mean, our sewer capacity right now is fine, but looking out over the next 5 years, we're certainly going to need a lot of sewer capacity. Most folks probably know that we have a relationship where we provide the vast majority of sewer for Kennett Township as well and parts of New Garden. So have to work with all those parties to come up with something the borough can afford and live with longer term. But that process has already begun. And we also got a grant recently to help with that as well.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, we had received a $30,000 grant a couple weeks ago to begin to look at some improvements to State Street. So these would be relatively minor to start, but it's at least getting us along that path to reinvigorating the street. So more details to come.
Thanks, Al. Mr. Mayor, anything separately from your office you'd like to share?
You know, other than the events the chief already mentioned, Cinco de Mayo was a rainy, not such a fun day to be here, but the Casa Guanajuato did an incredible job putting together a really nice event for those that kind of pushed through the rain. We had a really nice day for that, and the Memorial Day parade went off without a hitch. So, and the rain held off until after that. So the events were really good in town during the month of May.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind everyone from my report that our July meetings are July 8th and the 10th. So just, it won't be what is that? I guess the 1st and 3rd because of the 4th of July week. We're going to do it the following week, July 8th and July 10th, Monday and Wednesday, like always. I'd also like to share and recognize the passing of some really key members from the greater Kennett community. A lot of folks are probably very well aware of Pastor Dan. Reverend Daniel Neiswanger passed away very recently. He was a spiritually beautiful person and really a key part of Kennett in the First Baptist Church. And our condolences certainly to Nancy and his family and friends. Also, unfortunately, Tommy Lafferty, who many folks know either from his presence in the mushroom community in New Garden Township, or more recently when he and Kathy moved into the borough, and a key part of the Mushroom Festival. New Gardens, he was New Gardens helicopter Santa for those folks that went out there, and certainly involved in Midnight in the Square as well. And we certainly pass our condolences on to Kathy and her family as well. And then thirdly, Lou Manuel, who a lot of folks probably know, was a longtime real Kennett sort of a guy, contractor, who passed away very suddenly last week. And our condolences to Vicky and her family over those passings. So special thoughts to those 3 folks and their families. And with that, let's get into the discussion items. First item is 11A, Civil Service Commission. Chief, will you share us what's going on, what you need?
Yes, sir. So we are asking you this evening if you would formally charge the Civil Service Commission to conduct entry-level police officer testing. This is all due to a resignation of an officer that we just received recently.
So is there any discussion on council, or you're looking for a motion, Chief?
Yes, we're asking if you would charge civil service to begin that testing process.
Is there a motion from a councilman person to do that?
I'll move to get that process.
Is there a second? Matt, you're right. It's not a voting item. It's a consent item for Wednesday night. My apologies. Is there any objection to putting this on the consent agenda for Wednesday? Thank you.
I just point out that I think the intention is to have the cadet position available for that testing, right?
Yes.
I do want to point out, this will be the very first time, and I don't know how many years, that the police department will accept applicants who are not certified as police officers and will send them to the academy if they are a qualified candidate. And the goal is to open up the opportunity to folks who are qualified but don't have the training. And then we will send them to the academy to get certified. And I think this is a very important step for our department. One is it's a challenge to recruit police officers at the moment. This will open the candidate pool, but there may be folks that live right here in Kennett that would really like the opportunity to serve as a police officer, but in the past you had to have gone to the academy and been certified. And by removing that barrier and being able to send folks, it will open up our candidate pool. And the hope is to get some local residents that want to serve in that opportunity, but never had that opportunity because they weren't certified. So I'm very excited to see what that's going to look like and how that might improve our candidate pool.
Thank you. Next item, number 12A, is a couple of HARB items. Andy, 308 South Broad Street?
Yes, 308 South Broad is front porch replacement. We reviewed, this one was a little strange that they had started the replacement project but failed to get the proper permits, so there was a stop order issued. We reviewed the plans and the existing part that they had already constructed, found that it met our qualifications, and recommend that you issue a COA so they can continue and finish the project.
Is a HARB permit needed for a replacement in like kind?
It is when they take the entire existing structure off and replace it, we need to make sure that it's replaced suitably.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the HARB review. We don't issue permits. We just issue a request to you to issue a COA.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Any discussion on 308 South Broad Street for Andy? Any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you.
Interesting about 308, it's exactly the same architecture of my own house, which is also 308. Interesting. 341 South Union is to replace the front entry portico. This was brought to us by the McCanns. The original house, which was actually built by my wife's uncle, grandfather, so there's another family thing, was replaced at some point in the last 100 years. They want to return it to where it looked as the house was built. When we approved the design, and recommend that you issue a COA for that. Any questions on those?
Any questions, council? Any objection in putting this on the consent agenda? We will do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Andy. Public Works on the Birch Street reconstruction?
Yeah, so well, I guess as an update for everyone, we've received a few grants over the last couple of years that stack on top of each other to redo Birch Street, which is the road, adding sidewalks and a trail, some landscaping, some pedestrian crosswalks to try to slow things down. We got back the bids late last week, and so I'm recommending we push this review to Wednesday. We just need to make sure that we know exactly which fund everything is coming from, make sure that we've gone through all the reviews, given it a really thoughtful review.
Thanks, Kyle. Any objection to putting this on the agenda for Wednesday? We'll do that. And item 14A, considered authorization of revised advertisement of the Chapter 11 parking ordinance updates. This is, the council is being asked to consider advertising an ordinance change when it comes to traffic, parking, vehicles. What the process is to change an ordinance is we have to decide amongst council whether or not to advertise that. And if it's advertised, then it gets put in front of the council the following month. So the question for council tonight is, do we want to advertise this revised draft? And the chief will fill us in on the details. And if so, put it onto the agenda for July 8th meeting. Chief?
I can actually jump in. So
Mike?
we've already considered most of this ordinance to advertise at our last meeting. There was a change, though, after last meeting that it was noted that portions of Mulberry Street should be incorporated into the residential permit parking area. So there's a new section 3 that was added into this. We don't have to do a separate ordinance. You'd be voting on advertising tonight. All the ordinance provisions we talked about previously, the only change is that section 3, which is the residential parking permit program as it relates to Mulberry Street and East Maple Street, north side from Elm Alley to North Broad. Right, Chief?
Yes, well, and part of it, I believe, is a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee as far as to allow parking, which was recently restricted on Mulberry Street in between Lafayette Street and South Washington Street on the NVF side of the street, the south side. But I know there was some caveat to that discussion as far as that this may just be a temporary solution, as we don't know what the development situation of MVF is and what those needs on that side of the street where parking had always been prohibited. So yes, and to include the residential parking in that same section that we're also talking about in between Lafayette and Washington.
Thank you, Chief. Any discussion, comment?
We can certainly talk about it more when it comes up for a vote. But just for council's sake, this is the section that several residents have come to the last couple of council meetings and petitioned council to consider allowing parking to return there on Mulberry Street in front of MVF. Though I want to thank those residents. I don't know if anybody's here tonight from that group. There she is. They came to 3 public safety meetings. They've been to at least 2, and this is probably their 3rd borough council meeting. They received and presented petitions, I believe 37, maybe 41 petitions for residents on that block asking for that parking to be returned. They worked incredibly hard to gather the information. They came and presented it really logically, and it's exactly how the process should work. They came, they presented all their concerns, and the Public Safety Committee recommended that this be advertised for the ordinance, and then, of course, council debate it and vote at the next meeting. But they really worked hard to present their information.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions, comments from council? Is there any brief comment or question from anyone in the audience?
That section, just to clarify, that block has never had parking. It ain't started parking, so that became the norm. We do not have 2-car passage in it. So I suggest you start looking at it one way for that particular block, because there's no way 2 cars can get through there, and we're all at risk when we drive through there. I've lived there since 1979 in that particular area, so I know it back and forth. And we cannot pass 2 cars on there because they enforce that law. And I would suggest that when you want to do something comprehensive, you should have took the other block down by the Magnolia thing, where the person is still parked. As I left my home on the side of the street that you forbid beach folks to be on. So I think you better think of some other options. I don't care how many meetings you come to, you got to look at the safety of the community.
Thank you. Is there any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? It'll be consent item. Now, the main part of tonight's show, I guess. I think we joined in 2008. When did the grocer start? 2008, I think? 2018, okay. When it first, 2018, sorry, when it first started going and, folks started joining and hearing about this community grocer co-op concept. Let me ask Kyle to sort of introduce the discussion and kind of get us going here. We will certainly have public comment. I know a lot of folks want to express themselves. Please keep your comments on the brief side, certainly less than 4 minutes if you can, because there's a lot of people I think that want to express a comment here this evening. And I've got a couple that were emailed in as well. Kyle?
Sure. So I'll give a brief introduction to it. I'll explain the process that I see working here or for any lease in the borough building. Happy to take any questions, and I understand Edie's here if there are any questions specifically of the grocer group. So as an introduction, this is how we process most larger items that come through, which is we bring it to council when it's 50% complete to get a sense, is this worth spending staff time and resources to kind of follow it down to get to a final decision? It's what we've done with the sidewalk ordinance, which is coming up later tonight. It's what we're doing with ADUs. This is the same thing. So this is really a vote tonight, not on whether there's agreement on every proposal here. This was received late last week. The question is this directionally in line with council's priorities for this building? So to give a brief sense, this will be very, overly generic, but it's a 10-year lease with a 10-year option thereafter, $17 a square foot to take the first floor southern space of our building. And again, there's a lot of details to be filled in on that, but that's the rough basis of it. So the question is not whether there's agreement on everything here, but is it directionally going down the path that you want? And then, staff would then take it from there and develop a contract with the grocer to then be voted on.
Thank you, Kyle.
Sorry, just one other piece. You brought up a great point that this has gained obviously a lot of community input and buy-in. I would recommend to council, if you are a member or a board, as is the case with any vote like this, you'll want to disclose that and you'll want to really limit your comments on that just so that we can be clear in kind of what our interests are. We're not making anything on this, but you want to be clear in that.
Thank you, Kyle. Edie, on behalf of the Kennett Community Grocer, would you like to share any thoughts as we get into this? Please, if you would.
I just want to thank all of our member owners for being here. Okay, one of the things I'd really like to stress to the council is that although, yes, we incorporated in 2018 as Kennett Community Grocer, a community-owned food co-op. And we have, as of today, 374 member owners of our co-op. We are a 12-member board of directors that is governing the co-op, but we are not strictly an institution that is just coming out of nowhere developing a grocery store, a food, the food co-op. Food co-ops, there are 250 food co-ops across the nation, and currently there are 94 in development. There are 24 in the East. We are all 94 of us that are emerging, as well as the 250 that are in operation. These co-ops are actually mentored and helped by a national organization that has been doing emergence and they lead the sustainability of food co-ops, and they've been doing it for over 30 years. That organization is called the Food Co-op Initiative. We are part of that. We are being mentored by them. So for the last 2 years, I have been spending 2 to 3 hours a month on mentoring calls. We are part of 14 organizations that are in a certain level of emergence, meaning that we are helped with our sustainability. So the answer to, I want you to understand as council members, are we going to be good tenants? Do you think we can actually pay the rent? And I would say that we will be good tenants. We are not just developing our financial pro forma out of the blue. The financial pro forma was developed with a lot of thought and mentoring by food co-op financial people. And as we speak, we are listed out of the 12 food co-ops that are emerging. We are identified as being in the top 10 of those 12 that will be sustainable. And our pro forma that we have sent to you, I think demonstrates that we're a bit of a risk, yes, but we meet the benchmarks of sales forecasting and cash flow forecasting for emerging food co-ops. So I think that we can discuss that further. What does that mean? But we have taken our mentorship very seriously. We've listened to our the leaders in the food co-op world. And one of the things those leaders do is they really go to bat for you. They make sure that you don't fail. And so that's, we have some underpinnings in our emergence. So I wanted to assure you of that. And I do want you to know that we're working very hard on building our membership. And part of our business plan is both threefold. One, to seek grants. We have 2 going into the pipeline right now. We will be fundraising over the next year. Should you grant us this space, we will be going into very, very diligent fundraising. And we are currently right now working with the Chester County Community Economic Development Corporation to look at a financial development plan. So we have submitted our business plan and pro forma to them, and they are taking a look at that also to help us.
Thanks, Edie, and thanks
So
for all the work you've been doing with your committee to get this to where it is.
And I'd be happy to answer any of your other specific questions. And please do join us. Join us.
Edie, do you mind staying there?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
probably
sure,
get a couple
sure.
of questions from council. Kathleen?
So, my husband and I have been members for 2 years.
Yes.
But can you explain, so a food co-op, you talk about membership. So would this be open to just members or would this be open to the general public?
No, a food cooperative is open. Yes, I'll answer both questions. The food cooperative is open to the general public. But if you are a member owner, meaning you have invested for your household, so let's say there are 4 people in your household is the membership. So if you invest and buy a member equity share, which is $300 for one-time payment, or you can spread that over 12 months at $26 per month. Join from our website tonight. If you have a member equity share, then you are you are part of the ownership and you have determining ability in the food co-op. Now, let's play this through for a little scenario. Say you vote down the road that you would like to give Kennet Community Grocer the opportunity to lease 7,000 square foot here in this building. Really, it will be upon us, our 12-member board, our communications team, to get a survey out to all of our member owners and say, before we put the dot on the lease, is this a space that you all want? We have an architect already who is doing a beautiful artistic rendering. So that rendering will go out on a survey and we'll ask our member owners, are you sure you want this? This is where we want to be. This is what we're recommending. I think they'll see this building, like the 7,000 square feet downstairs. We intend to convert that into an amazing space. And I think they'll see that and they'll vote on it and they'll say yes. That's one of the things. But the more important thing is there's an annual meeting every year. The member owners will decide democratically at that meeting whether you get deep discounts as when you shop as member owners, like 10% off every time you go to the cash register, or you will do a profit sharing cashback check. The more you buy, the more you get back, like at Costco. Or the member owners may decide, no, for the first couple of years, we'd like to roll the profits back into the store. So memberships decide that. Membership also decides we will be sending, once we hire our general manager, once we start putting into place the farms that we're going to buy for, we will put out a product philosophy survey, and member owners will decide what products you want. We have a grant out that is going to include a community engagement coordinator to reach out to our diverse community, to our Latino community, to our Indian community, to all of our diversity that is here in Kennett, the Kennett area. And we're going to ask, what products do you want here? We might not be able to get the avocados that you want under, local farmers are not growing those, right? We want to source 80% of our products locally, but we may have to source some otherwise than locally. But the product philosophy will be determined by the member owners.
Follow-up? Did you have a follow-up?
No. Thank you.
Any other discussion from council? Right. We certainly, since 2018, when you kicked off the idea, we've seen the signs all around town and folks have certainly gotten excited. As I've been involved in Kennett Collaborative and also more recently on the council, I think more folks have mentioned the desire to have a good grocery store, walkable within the borough to be a really, really important thing for the borough to plan and try to have. And if you guys can pull it off, as I think you can, it'd be wonderful for the borough, that's for sure. Is there discussion from the audience? Again, I'd ask you to keep your comments fairly brief. I want you to get your time. I'd also ask you to stand up and just please say your name and where you're from. Sir, right here.
Stay on about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in there. Besides the idea of having a grocer in town, it's a different kind of grocery. It's a grocery for good food. Because you go into an Acme or Super G, it's like, pretty put up on the farm. But most of the food that's in there is garbage. It's processed food, it's junk food, it's all the stuff that we all need. But the purpose of kind of goal there is to be really good quality food. I belong to the New York Club, it's like 1978, 1979. You walk in there, obviously it's organic, but most of the stuff, you don't have to be organic, it's just good food. It's non-processed, local, much as you can get sometimes, but it's just good food. And it's different from going to a major grocery store with 50,000, 100,000.
Thank you very much. We also received a couple of letters that I'll share sort of intermixed in here. This is a letter from James and Jeannie Lair, if I'm saying that correct. We live at 117 West South Street in the borough since 1990. We're unable to make the meeting tonight due to personal reasons. We fully support the Kennett Community Grocer being located on South Broad at the municipal building. Other questions? Ma'am? Could I ask you just say your name and where you're from?
Oh, I'll take the mic to you.
How about that? Okay.
Hi, Edith. I have a question. Right here, Julie, sorry.
Where?
I'm right.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
Oh, okay.
if you don't mind passing the mic, because folks are also on Zoom and they'd love to hear the answers. There's a number of folks on Zoom. But we have mics up here, so for the audience.
Okay.
My question is around price point. Like, where are you trying to, like, is there, like, you wanted this to be affordable, right? Like, where are you from a price point perspective? Are you at market prices? Are you at Newark Co-op prices? Are you at Acme prices?
Okay.
Like, where are you thinking perspective?
It's a very, very important question. And it's not easy to answer, but I'm going to take a crack at it. One of the things that you do when you are an emerging food cooperative is that you hire your general manager, who has to be very experienced in buying to keep your price point down. So we will be hiring an experienced person who probably will come from the world of the Acmes and the Giants. You start a year in advance working wholesale contracts with your farm distributors. So as much as I want to, our general manager will go out to farms like Bruce's Farm. They'll also be going to people like Dale Yates at Yates Produce and the Oxford Auction and the Ephrata Auction and every single other food cooperative in the tri-state area. And we will be negotiating far ahead of time wholesale contracts. We will be doing a wholesale contract with a national organization called the National Food Co-op Grocery Store. The whole point of these wholesale contracts is that it will be a new way that you will buy local healthy food at affordable prices. It's up to us to really push that wholesale buying to the point where it becomes affordable. So we have much greater wholesale power behind us than a place like Harvest Market. We will not be charging farm market prices. That's the highest retail prices that are out there in buying local, local product. We'll be putting a lot of effort into the wholesale market of the store in order to make this affordable. Now, for those individuals who have struggle to buy groceries, we will be giving SNAP. So you can buy groceries at the store with their SNAP benefits. We also will do ongoing fundraising, not only at the point of service at the cash register, but ongoing fundraising all the time. Even though we are not a 501c3, we have a 501c3 fiscal sponsor. We'll continually fundraise for something called Food for All program. This will be a deep discount program for people who do not qualify for SNAP benefits, but are living at 200% or 200% or below of the poverty line. They will be able to apply for our Food for All program and get a discount off the discounted prices, even if they're a member owner or whatever, if you're a Food for All program member. So it's a charitable program that we will offer. Our goal is to make this a healthy healthy food to buy for all people, but not at the top dollar that you're going to pay at a farmer's market or at a direct retail market at a farm.
Questions? Do you mind handing her the microphone, Edie? Thank you.
And this is Erin.
Yes, thank you. I'm Erin Self. I live in Pocopson Township, but we don't have a lot of opportunity for grocery stores and things there. So I'm happy to be here supporting our grocery store in Kennett Square. When you talked about two aspects I wanted to address in concerns of revenue and price points, just recognize one of the things that those of us that are kind of educated in this area and passionate about it is there is a lower price point if you think about the transportation and the distribution of foods from much larger farms that might have to go across the country from California, Whole Foods and some of the other areas where we have to go to get these foods are more expensive because of the transportation costs. So there are a lot of costs in the supply chain that we can remove and pass directly on to the local farmers, craftsmen, and everyone else that contributes the goods and services to the grocery store. The second thing is we have surveyed many of our members and our prospective membership who have indicated that they will drive up to 40 miles if that's how far they have to drive. And they will pay a little bit more and they will stand in line a little bit longer in order to get the better products that support both the community and their families. So I think the opportunity to bring additional revenue over time into the borough is also an important consideration. So,
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your comments. I'll also read another letter from Estelle Tracy. Dear members of Borough Council, I'm writing and propose the establishment of a food co-op in Kennett Square. As a borough resident, I believe a food co-op would be a tremendous asset to our community for several reasons, including local economic boost, sustainable practices, community engagement, and access to healthy foods. I strongly believe and support a food co-op would enhance the quality of life in Kennett Square. Other questions? Andy?
Thank you. My question is, how do you think an operating food co-op will affect a very popular asset of Kennett, which is the farmer market every Friday?
Great question. And I want to tell you that this is true across the United States. It's very true in Newark. The day of the farm, we want and have invited and have talked to the Kennett Collaborative. Ross Fenton and I are very close friends. We want the farmers market in our parking lot. We want to be together. And we will market the farmers market on our website. The highest revenue sales day for a food co-op is the day the farmer's market is on site. So every Friday, we want the farmer's market there. Now, why is that so? There will be farmers at the farmer's market that want to continue their own retail market, that don't want to sell to us on a wholesale level. And they want to be out in the market. So we may not be competing with them. Although, for example, Fiddle Creek, we may carry their yogurt inside, but they're doing their milk and cheese and everything else outside. Or Chesapeake Gold Farm is a farm that I'm, very interested in. And we may take some of their cheese, but their yogurt, their milk, they sell at a farmer's market. They sell down at Newark. Bruce is very interested in supplying to us. But you may still want to, and I like going to his farm. And so I still might want to go there to buy the chickens, or to buy beef. We're not going to put farmers out of business that we're not buying from. And we want the farmers market to be part of us.
Thank you, Edie. If anyone on Zoom has a question, you're more than welcome to write them on the comments, and then Rachel will let us know what they are. Any other comments or questions from the audience?
Okay. Okay.
Hold on one
Sorry.
second.
If we sign the lease, right, like when would the actual co-op be able to go into the building? Like what would be the build out phase, timeline?
I'm going to defer this to Collis Townsend, our realtor, to answer this question. And Louise Tovar. Louise Tovar and Collis Townsend are representing us as our realtors, and they are wonderful.
Thank you for that. The answer to your question is, as proposed, you all have some obligations to repair some things within the space. So once that's done is when the lease term would begin. So wrapping of asbestos, abatement of the asbestos is the big one to take care of. Whether to drop a drop ceiling, we have to get an opinion from the architects how to do that best to keep dust from filtering from upstairs. So as soon as you're all done with the space work, providing water and sewer access to the space itself, because there's no bathrooms in the space right now. We also intend to have kitchens, things like that in the space for workspace. So once those raw things are provided, that's when the term would begin, and we would probably open within a year after that.
Thank you, Collis. Our family lives at 119 West South Street in the borough of Kennett Square. We're unable to attend the meeting this evening due to a prior commitment. We fully support the proposed community grocer being on South Broad Street in the municipal building. Michelle and Paul Shiab. Sir?
Hi, Peter Thomas, 630 Magnolia Court. And I am a member of the food co-op. I think I was in the first 50 or maybe less. And I support it. I think it's a great thing. But I think the obvious question is, what else is the borough? What is the alternative for the borough to use this space? As a citizen of the borough, I have to put the other hat on and say, okay, if you don't do this, what happens to the space? That's my big question.
I'll try a shot at answering that. I think it's pretty obvious that the borough has struggled to get strong commercial tenants into the building. A number of folks have inquired, but the reality is the building to be fit out needs a lot of work, and the borough's not able or willing to spend a lot of money in terms of fitting out the space for a specific user. So the user has to have the wherewithal, the capital to invest in fitting the space out. And the borough also needs to pay a pretty big nut. You know, the mortgage that we have called a bond is a pretty big bill that the borough has to pay regardless if anyone's in here or not. The council a couple months ago studied that question, pondered that question an awful lot. And the majority of council, I'll say, had the opinion that putting the building to greater community use over, not necessarily over, but looking more at the community benefit to the space as compared to the commercial return on the space was the priority. So that's where at least this council is right now. Any other comments? Thank you for your question. A couple over here, Edie?
Can I just give you?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll get everyone in. Go ahead.
Okay.
Clara Saxon, 120 West Linden, owner, member from forever. What everybody else said. And additionally, I think that many of us have a heightened awareness of what our big agriculture is doing to our national health. And this is our opportunity to put our dollars to work with local farmers and good food available to us without all of the processed stuff that's in our faces.
Yes.
John Thomas, 406 South Broad. My thinking is I'm all for a co-op. I don't like the idea that we're gonna have to fix up the building. I think that we ought to give you a year's free rent and let you fix the building the way you need it done, rather than tell us how you want it to do, because it's gonna be more expensive for us to do it than it is for you to do it.
And I'm going to let one of our board of directors answer that question, Henry Schlemme. Henry is
Sure.
the chair of our store.
Henry Schlemme. So we are not asking for you to fit out the building for us. There's just a few small things like the water sewer and then asbestos, and then we're going to pay to put everything in there and build it out how we'd like it. And then obviously work with Historic Architectural Review Board, et cetera. But our plan is we would come out of pocket for those expenses.
Other comments or questions?
I think
I'm Gail Teft and I live at 228 North Broad Street here in Kennet, member owner, also active volunteer. And the idea of now being able to go out and bring in prospective member owners with a site in mind would be fabulous. And I think it would make all of our lives very much easier. I just think it's a great fit. What we're planning on doing and what is available here. I think it will work beautifully. And all of the things that have been said already are what I'm feeling. And that's it. And I thank you. Thank you, Edie.
Yes.
Hi, Jen Samuel, Daily Local News. 2 questions. Well, we have about 100-ish farms in Chester County remaining. And then in Lancaster, there's about 5,000 farms that we still have. How will you select which farms to feature? And also when it comes to mushrooms, we are obviously the mushroom capital of the world. So how will you determine which mushroom farms produce to feature? Thank you.
that was a very, very good question. Again, one of the reasons that you hire your general manager at the same time you start doing your renovation, so a year before you open the doors, is because you want to look at all of the farms, to determine who you're going to buy from, how you're going to stock. We hope to have as many as possible. Now, we are not, again, alone in that. Chester County Economic Development Corporation has a program called Ag Connect. It's run by the woman in charge of that is Jordan Peaks, and she and I are in frequent contact with one another. There are actually 1,730 family farms in Chester County. And there are, again, as you say, 5,000 some in Lancaster. I've also, been for the last 2 years in contact with Dale Yates, who's a food distributor, a local food distributor. So you have to pull in the distribution network, the wholesale network, the farmers. Have also been in contact with Jeffrey Stoltz Foods, who is a produce expert at the Penn State Extension, in contact with him. We're not just going to say, here's what, call us on the telephone and sell to us. It will be a year-long effort to provide the best food at the best prices and be the economic engine for as many farms as possible.
Edie, I think there was a question in the back. She's pretty good.
I won.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I apologize for being late and missing part of this here. I just wanted to ask if it's, you're talking about the space downstairs.
Sorry,
south end of the
sir,
building.
your name.
Barry Hazard, 332 South Broad.
Thank you.
Sorry, right up the street. I think it's a great idea, a food co-op, but I'm just wondering that you're talking about the space at the south end of the building, the whole space, correct? How many square feet is that? 7,000. Okay, and that's $17 a square feet. I didn't do the foot, right, for rent. Have they considered either of those two buildings? I'm just curious about that, the two vacant buildings, and if that would be appropriate. I mean, they seem to be freestanding, and I didn't know whether that was going to be a consideration. Okay, that's it.
Good evening, Barry. The answer is yes. And there is a possibility of actually taking on additional space. You know, the core of the the community grocer would be downstairs, but they're also talking about having a kitchen and producing food to make it available, which has real impacts for the underserved in this community to be bringing food in and processing it. No, the annex building is not suitable. You know, that's for something else to go in there. But yes, we would consider taking on additional space, but it's a price and consideration. You know, the first thing you have to do is get this one going.
To those folks that are on the chat or on Zoom, I think we disabled that mistakenly, so it should be back on soon. Please.
Okay, still Barry Hazard, still 332 South Broad. I just want to you said you're preparing food. I'm a vegetarian, has nothing to do with what the food co-op is, but I just wanted to ensure there's not going to be any slaughtering of animals in the borough, right? Because I think there is a slaughterhouse on the edge of the borough, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of across from Giant. And I just wanted to ensure that we're not going to get halal slaughtering chickens or anything like that.
No.
No, we will not be slaughtering. One of the things I do want to say about the space, the 7,000 square feet, because Kyle was part of this actually 2 years ago. We had a national expert on sales forecasting for this site, for this exact site. And we met with her here 2 years ago, and she did our analysis. And her analysis was for our trade area, which she estimated at a circumference of 9 miles around this building. Our sales forecast is starts out at $2.5 million for that 7,000 square feet the first year of sales, and goes up from there. And I will tell you, there's a little teeny tiny space of 3,000 square feet in South Philly with no parking, and they're doing $3 million a year out of that little teeny tiny space. So we have potential.
Pete, if you're there and you have a comment or question, please go ahead.
Sure, it's a comment. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. It's actually a comment. What I've been thinking about is what a wonderful thing it'll be for the community, for the large number of residents who don't have transportation, who are walking and or perhaps sometimes, if they're lucky, having bicycles and walking or riding their bikes on the major roads to get down to Giant or up to Walmart. I just think it's going to really benefit the residents who don't have access to actually be able to safely walk to a grocer for their groceries. So I think that aspect is wonderful, and I think it's a nice thing to keep in mind for the large number of people in this community that don't have transportation to get to a grocery store. Thanks.
Thank you, Pete.
Quite a few things come to mind when I'm hearing this presentation, is the fact that I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. I'm gonna tell you right now. Because you're talking about the proposition of what might be, what can be, but it's not here now. And in this building, we have, I can safely say in Kennett Square, over $21 million of debt. And I can safely say 31 if I add in the lawyer fees, architectural fees, okay? Any other person that's a specialist. So this is a serious business in this building, and we need to get to top of anything. Plus, my first degree is a home economics teacher. So some of the things I'm hearing today here are not quite factually true. I go to a farmer's market every week down on 926 and 202 where the Lancaster County people come in. They do a great job. I've advocated that ever since we took our grocery stores out of here and had the people who can't afford to join your co-op at $300 go to Longwood and New Garden. Because the vast majority of Kennett Square will not be joining your co-op. Now, this is a reality. Your prices can't be but so low. Because, for between Giant, ShopRite, I'm in all the stores. You can't beat them. So a family of 5, 7, 10, however many they got, is going to try to get the most they can out of their money and stretch it. And believe me, quality food, I know it. I had a $4,000 food budget when I was the only home ec teacher. So that tells you a lot about picking food and what recipes you were cooking. Foreign food with real shrimp, crab, lobster. So when you talk about things, I expected you to talk about South Philly, Baltimore Harbor, because we need seafood bought here. But you cannot, this sounds like an elitist thing to me. And I do think the outbuildings, period, not the inside of this building, that should have offices, businesses, R4PAO should be in this building. Not anything that's going to generate food. I just don't feel in the building. I didn't say not outside, in outbuildings, but not in this building. I don't think that's the type of medium for here.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Right up here. Oh, I'm sorry, Luis, please.
Luis Tovar, 126 West Cypress Street in the borough. To this point, we've been hearing from the very beginning since we've been having this conversation with members as well as the borough staff is this thing called community, right? You're hearing a lot about community. That word is being spread so often. And what our position, Collis and mine position, in helping the borough filling some of these spaces is bringing some of these services to this location. The services that serve the ones that really are struggling, whether it's a WICS program or anything else like this, to be able to make this more of a community, engage those citizens, those members of our community within this building, creating that foot traffic. They're already going to pay their bills here at the borough offices. It's another reason to come here and to get more acquainted with that community and providing services to that community. So there's a number of other opportunities to make this a strong community, not just for the grocer, but that's a catalyst.
Thank you. Do you mind sharing the microphone right up here? Luis, right in front. Mr. Edwards.
Hey.
Hi, Luis. My only concern is Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. My only concern is not so much how much money's going to come in or how much space they're going to occupy. Mine is the health and safety in a structure of 7,000 square feet where you have a lot of produce that gets knocked onto the floor, people slip and trip and get hurt. Who has the liability on that? You as the landlord are going to have to also make sure you get with their people that are designing this thing where everything is going to go, because they're going to require a lot of things for maintaining this produce that you see in these supermarkets. So there's going to be special pieces of equipment that they're going to have for certain items. I think of a produce market, I think corn, potatoes, fresh picked peas, those kind of things. All right. Now I'm starting to hear dairy. You have to watch what you're going to get yourselves into, because as the landlord in a lot of places like that, you're just as liable as the people that are running the business. So make sure you're careful, because if something happens and the lawyer comes up and says, you've been served. Yep. I'll be saying bye-bye.
Fair comment. Any last comment or question? Sir, in the back? We lost Edie.
Hi, I'm Patrick McKenna. I live at 216 Center Street, and I was just here today to express my support for the co-op. I am a member owner. And the discussion today, it actually kind of reminds me a bit about the library, where it seems like we took a chance on it, and now it's here, and it's amazing what an asset it is for the wider community. And every single day it's there, I feel fortunate that I live in the borough and I could walk to it whenever I want. And the grocer seems like it's going to be a very similar thing. It's going to be another pillar of the community here. And I just consider ourselves fortunate that we're in the borough and we'll be able to walk to this incredible place, right in our backyards.
Is there one other comment in the back? Right in the middle in the back.
Hi, Adriana Gallagher, Penn Township. I just want to say that, historically, co-ops were a very closed shopping experience where you had to be a member in order to go in the store. And I've been a member of a variety of co-ops for 30 years. And starting at that time, 30 years ago, they became open and anyone could go in. You didn't need to be a member. And while it is more expensive than, going to Giant and buying a non-organic piece of fruit, it's pretty equal in cost regardless. And so I think that in addition to being more open, more accessible with WIC and SNAP to everybody, it's also providing an environment that a lot of towns don't have, in the sense that, having shopped organically for over 30 years, when I go into a town, I look for the organic food store. I pull out my phone and I look up natural foods and see what it pulls up. And it is a real draw to not have to then try to go somewhere else when I'm coming in to visit a town, trying to go somewhere else and find the food that I want to eat, and get what I'm able to get. So I think that in addition to, just being a service to the community, it's also going to be a draw to people who come in. And Kenneth Square has changed so much since, I left in '93. So, it's changed so much in the last 30 years that it really does seem to be a very true destination for people. And I think it's added value to that. I do agree that the price point can be kind of high for people. That's true. But if someone is in such dire straits that they would have SNAP and WIC, it's an enhancement to what they are able to buy. That's it.
Thank you. Let me just ask, is there any closing comments from anyone up here? Kyle?
Sure. Obviously appreciate everyone coming out and giving your thoughts on it. That's what public comment is for. Just to bring it back around, the question here tonight is whether council wants to proceed with the letter of intent. It's not a vote on this as a contract or sort of a final document, but A, is there interest in moving forward, council and staff sort of working down this path? And then second, give some guidance if there are any real major changes to it to help us to think about.
Mr. Mayor?
I just want to say two things. Number one, thank you for sending the proposal in. I am not overly familiar with the community grocer at all, and I was really impressed with the high quality of the business plan that you submitted for us to review. I thought that your letter of intent, without going into specific terms overall, was a really great place to start. It wasn't we're so far apart that we would never come to common ground, and we'll certainly leave that for future discussions. But I thought that I was thrilled to see it in our email last Friday. I'm glad we had the discussion tonight, and I want to thank everybody for their time, because I think it's potentially a very strong use of the space. And I think it could be an incredible asset. So thank you for your time, and thank you for submitting the information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other council comment? I'll say that you did a great job as our presenter tonight, and the audience and the folks you brought out, and the passion. Thank you, Edie. Thank you very much. The letter of intent is understandably very much in favor of the Kennett Community Grocer in terms of the terms. I think your attorney, Ms. Swain, did a very good job of representing the grocer on the terms. That said, we also have a very, very significant financial responsibility for the bonds on this property, which the borough has to pay. All the borough residents have to pay it, not just those that might use the co-op, the grocer or not. So we have to consider that, or at least I'm hoping that we consider that as well. So the question that we're asking the council tonight is, council, does anyone object to putting the letter of intent on our consent agenda for Wednesday evening? From my perspective, that means, do we want to continue to pursue what I would consider a draft letter of intent with speed, with full consideration, with serious consideration, but understanding that this is a draft and that we'd have to coalesce or collaborate with our council to give you comments that we could feed back to the community grocer. Does that make sense? And is that okay? So with that, does that cover what the community grocer needs right now? Okay. So with that, is there any council person who objects to putting this on the consent agenda for Wednesday evening? It'll be on the consent agenda. Keep it going. We've got a few more items. You're more than welcome to stay. If you want to leave, we certainly understand, as is usually the case. I just ask you to try to be quiet on the way out. Next item up for consideration is item 14C. Consider the National Night Out Special Event application. Is that the chief or the mayor?
Chief can explain, but the Public Safety Committee recommended that the application be approved.
What we'd like to do is we would like to honor the National Night Out annual event this August 6th. It's the first Tuesday in August, and it would be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're asking council to grant permission for us to utilize the parking lot here again at 600 South Broad. We had a really great combined event with Kennett Township last year. Involved all of our fire companies, our public safety personnel, and it was a great opportunity for residents and responders to have some good conversation and to continue building relationships. And we'd like to really foster the success that we saw from last year's event and continue it and make it even more engaging this year.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from council?
No questions, but it is a wonderful night out and it's a great opportunity to meet our first responders and other services that you bring to. Thank you.
Any public comment? Is there any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you. Next item is the Summerfest road closure extension, basically giving the Kennett Collaborative folks a bit more time to set up to get all the booths and safety around the event that they need to. I think it's a 7 o'clock closing, or 7 o'clock, no parking, 8 o'clock closing.
If I could find that item. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, just again, giving them some more time to be able to get the tent set up. Once I think they talked to their vendor, they just didn't have enough time to get set up properly. So this will really won't cause any greater impact, just close the roads down a little bit earlier.
Thank you, Chief. Again, I am a member of the Kennett Collaborative Board. There's no financial gain. Mike, correct me. Can I vote on this or consent on this?
You can. If there's no financial impact, then you could.
Okay. Is there any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you.
Event is Sunday,
It's coming.
Sunday the 9th. Tickets are still available.
Thanks, Daniel.
It's Sunday.
Next item is consider the retroactive letter of support for the Brandywine Red Clay. Kyle?
Sure. So these next three items work in concert with each other. These three items work in concert with each other. We own the Parish Trail. As you know, we've been working for some time now to get grants to repair that section of the stream. Our partner here, Brandywine Red Clay Alliance, has done a really good job on that. bluntly, shortly put, these are two grant applications. One we had to do before this meeting. So it's a retroactive ask in accordance with our previous policy on this. Second is a proactive ask. And then third is an agreement that we have to make to allow them to work on the site.
Comments from the council or mayor? Public comment? Any objection to consider putting the retroactive letter of support for Brandywine Red Clay Alliance for the grant application item E on the consent agenda? Thank you. Same question for the letter of support for the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance of second grant application. Any objection? And thirdly, thank you. Thirdly, consideration of the BVRCA and Borough Agreement for the Parish Trail. Any questions? Any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you. Key topic. This came up at our March workshop in terms of sidewalks. The question, one of the priorities the borough has is around beautification of the borough and keeping it a great place to live and play and walk around is certainly a very important part of that. Our zoning and codes officer, Lexi Games, put an awful lot of work into giving the council some advice in terms of guidance on policy versus where we are right now. Is that Lexi or Kyle?
Yeah, Lexi, you could introduce it. So Lexi's been with us for about 3 months now. She's done a great job, has taken a request from council. You mentioned it. This follows the same path that the grocer discussion did, which is this directionally right in terms of what council's thinking before we go ahead and spend money on developing an ordinance change and advertising and all of those steps. So Lexi, do you want to walk us through it? Thanks.
And Lexi, I guess what you're ultimately looking for is some guidance from council as well as any public comment in terms of developing that ordinance or bringing it forward.
Yes, so this would be to update the ordinance to current code and also to specify any requirements for repairs or replacements of sidewalks and curbs. So be breaking down the ordinance to I'll go through like the policies. That's easier. So revise the ordinance to prohibit any tree branches hanging below 7 feet from ground level, just to make a clear walking path for pedestrians.
Do you mind if we stop on each of those? Because I think there's some great language you have in there and some thoughts that folks may have. So this again is to revise the ordinance to make sure that branches, low-hanging branches 7 feet or less on a sidewalk, a public pathway are taken care of by the homeowner or the owner of the property.
Yes, unless it is a shade tree, then it would be taken care of by the borough.
Gotcha. Because shade trees are the borough's responsibility. Comments from the council?
I'm for taking down low-hanging branches.
You are. You're going to stand by that, Mr. Councilman?
Never a trouble for me.
The one question I had when I read it, I think it's great. And it's common to walk around the borough and have trees that are, especially in growing season like right now. But how long to remedy that? Should we put in, you've got 2 weeks or some?
Yeah, so that kind of goes down further down the line where that's kind of up for discussion right now. Usually it's about a week notice, giving people a week plus the weekend to get the trees trimmed or grass cut. If it's an extensive amount of trees, it could be dependent on the situation.
And suppose I don't.
Then there would be either a fine or notice of violation put in place if you don't. So that would be something to discuss because currently we do not have a fine in place. Currently, another proposal is to, let me say, so if the owner fails to complete the sidewalk maintenance work, it is now the responsibility of the borough to complete that work and then give the fee to the property owner, which places the financial liability on the burden and on the borough, and then also a burden on the homeowner to get that paid, which may be a higher expense than doing the work themselves. So updating the ordinance to take that part out and then putting it on the homeowner to take care of the sidewalk repairs or maintaining bushes and stuff like that. And then if not, either a fee or some kind of notice being put in place. So the fee is not determined yet.
Council, Mayor? I think there was a comment related specifically to this.
I just was curious, what constitutes a shade tree?
They're in the right of way. So any trees in the right of way between the curb and the street.
Between the sidewalks?
Sidewalk and the curb, yes, sorry. Yeah,
So they're the responsibility of the borough?
yes.
Well, it's a little deeper than that.
No,
the-
no, I'm sorry, the trimming,
Right.
not the sidewalks. The
Right.
trimming of the trees, the trees, yeah.
Let me slightly correct that. I believe, correct me, Rachel, because she's on the commission, is that it's the borough's responsibility to trim those trees. It's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that tree lives, and if it dies, then the homeowner has to replace that tree. I believe that's the gist. I know we've looked at it a couple times. It's odd in my opinion, but that's the current ordinance that we have related to that.
It is a wait list at the moment for trimming of the shade trees. Unfortunately, just a number of shade trees and you can submit requests to get them. That would be up with Public Works. Rob could answer that question.
No, you can't submit your invoice after you've done the work. No. Lexi, keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure, there's another question.
Okay.
Do you have another question or just?
Do you want to keep going? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
So also updating how often the sidewalks are inspected. Currently, it's only during resale or rental inspections, and maintenance is not currently being enforced to our ordinance. So I would like to implement yearly inspections. This can be done in stages. We can start in the more concentrated areas, like C1, C2, and branch our way out to the borders of the borough. But I would like to start implementing more regular inspections. As those inspections are done, sidewalks last. So it's not something where it would be extensive start, but it would gradually decrease the amount of work as the inspections are done.
Sidewalks are currently the landowner's responsibility.
Yes.
And there's many streets, we've all been on them, that you're walking and the sidewalks are in great and others are in horrible shape. There's an enormous financial burden on the homeowner, but it is right now the homeowner's responsibility to repair sidewalks and make them passable. And you can walk from here straight up to town and you'll have a number of sidewalks that are certainly tripping hazards, or if you have a stroller or even worse, a walker or wheelchair to get up and down. But there is a big responsibility that if we start enforcing this, as our current books say we should be doing, to the landowner. My only concern is that we have to have a reasonable amount of time, whether that's 9 months, 12 months, something like that. And then there has to be some teeth in terms of what if I don't correct that problem. The borough's not in a position, nor in my opinion, wants to become the sidewalk replacer around town and to carry that financial burden. So it's if it doesn't happen, and how long, I think, are the questions, at least that I have from my perspective.
What I
Julie?
get worried about is if you decide in October all of a sudden to go around and start leasing this, and you start going to all these different homes, how many concrete companies are in this area? If we all start calling these people, and then if you're only giving them a certain amount of time, like, are you even gonna get the people to do it in that time? And then are you paying a premium for that? So I have like a general concern of like, if it's at a certain time, like, and you're doing it across the board, will it just be inundated to the point of not being able to actually do it?
Yes, so I want to clarify, the 7-day notice was for the tree trimming, sidewalks
But
and
even
curbs.
30 days, like.
Yeah, 30 to 60-day notice for
That
the
doesn't feel
sidewalks and
like a lot.
curbs. That could always be something that is discretionary. They could come to council approval. And if it is the colder months, they get a notice in November. They need until the spring to get it done. That's something that could be up to council approval. Also,
Go ahead, Lexi, I'm sorry.
sorry. Also, we would start with a small concentrated number of streets in order to make sure that we're not citing 100 sidewalks a week. We want to maintain it, so we're only citing a couple here and there, so there's not that worry of people not being able to find a sidewalk company.
There's a lot of jacked up sidewalks.
Annual inspection, council okay with that?
Yeah, Lexi, I would, we've talked about this, but given that we haven't been really enforcing this policy for the last 10 years, maybe, well, it was enforced before that at sale. I'm wondering if there isn't a process where you can give people a notice and then wait a fairly long amount of time, 6 months, 12 months. And then on the second one, that's when like you really have to, within the next 60 days, it has to be fixed because this is a major expense for some families and they might not have it like in the budget to do next month.
No, it's definitely something we can consider. I just also want to not be on the line of being too flexible and it getting drawn out and people not doing it and us losing track of it. So I think there's kind of a happy medium between the two.
Well, if we were inspecting annually, it could just be a record of, yep, this one got a notice that they're not in compliance. And then the next year when you inspect it the next time, then yeah, it has to be fixed.
And then what happens when people want to like we say their sidewalk isn't good, but then they want to come and debate it because they feel like it's not as bad as we describe. Like, or is there an escalation period? Like, I'm sure people are going to push back.
So that would be specified in the ordinance. That's the one thing that's currently not in our ordinance is specifying the requirements for a sidewalk repair. So it would be to the code, so a 1/4 inch gap, 50.
Quarter inch.
Yeah. So
That doesn't feel like a big gap. to
it's
me.
not.
I don't
But
like
we want to
that.
make sure people that the sidewalks are accessible and anything greater than that is a safety hazard. So that's really the main goal here is making sure our sidewalks are safe.
Hi, Joelle Watercott, 352 North Lincoln Street. I do not have a sidewalk, so I'm not worried about myself. But I am a real estate agent and I do know the burden that homeowners have when they sell their property now. I had one client who had an attached home, went to put it on the market. Their sidewalk wasn't even that bad, but they spent $15,000 just replacing a patch from here to the podium. And there wasn't even a tree in the way. Then you take some big old trees that we have here, some of the giant sycamores. I mean, some of these sidewalks can't be remedied because the trees are so large that the homeowner couldn't ever afford to take care of it. So I think that there has to be exceptions to the rule. And I think, I think a lot of that has to be taken into consideration. I don't think a year is a good enough time frame for a lot of people to be able to save up, to be able to fix, to take care of $10,000 in sidewalk repairs.
And we should be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hold on one second, Julie. Mr. Mayor.
I think it's probably long overdue that we've really been to address the sidewalks. But I think once council, I'm leaning towards Councilmember Fite's opinion. I think once we get the ordinance correct and we know what it's going to be, that we should have a 1-year warning period where we go out and work with folks and say, here's your notice, here's the code, it has changed, we're giving you 12 months. Because it is very, very expensive. And depending on what your frontage is, and if you're on a corner lot and something like that, it could be extremely expensive. And quite frankly, it's been our own fault for not enforcing it. So we've allowed it to get worse. And so we've contributed, right? Our DNA is on the problem. So I would love to see us get the ordinance right, give the department the tools that they need to do it correctly. But I'd love to see a 1-year moratorium of enforcement, except for maybe at point of sale with some caveats in there, but to walk around with warning notices that say, here, you're out of compliance and we're going to give you 12 months. And then we'll have to visit in 12 months again, what the teeth looks like. There's nothing worse than giving somebody who can't afford to fix it a fine on top of it. You're just creating a problem.
Yeah. And you've got beautiful old antique brick sidewalks. You've got slate or bluestone sidewalks, and there's a bunch of issues like that I think we need to address. Is it covered by HARP? It's not. Okay.
And speaking to the historic sidewalks that we have in Kennett, especially on Broad Street and somewhere on Union Street where we have brick, we have slate curbs, which is very unusual. It would, I think, be useful if we could seek out grants to help restore some of the historic sidewalks and maybe use some of that money as well to help folks who are in a need. Because once we lose those bricks, we never get them back. They're all considerate. Some of them are 8 feet wide. We don't need 8 feet in a residential area, but you could do some swapping because that is part of the charm of the central part of the borough.
Thank you. Ms. Watson had a comment?
I'm very perplexed. Sidewalks and curbs have always been the responsibility of the homeowner in Kennett Square. Now let's get that number one straight. Number two, I'm concerned about the borough's trees across from Wawa that touch people's head. The borough planted those trees on somebody's private property, that's probably not even a right of way. That needs to be rectified. You can't even walk up there. And the Catholic Church on the side of their building used to be that way too. I haven't observed it lately. I think the trees grew up. You have to bear with the trees because the surgeons don't come out in the 30 days. Because I hire them to trim my trees. They say, well, we'll get to you. We'll be there in 4 or 5 months. Now that's how far out those people are working. And the other thing, same way with sidewalk people. And I can tell you, we got some good guys in this town. If your sidewalk just needs shaving, they can shave it because I had it done to my own. The local boys. So I know one company that charges ridiculous. So no one should get hooked up with them. I don't want to get sued, so I won't say the name. But nobody should because they gave me a price for two pads that was like $4,000. I'm like, you're going somewhere, get out of here. But the other thing is, in the common areas, the community development block grant that I talk about so much is still under, may not be under that title, but HUD money can be used in the common area in businesses for what we call capital projects, and that's sidewalks and curbs. And when we've had ladies across from the Center Street apartments, little old ladies back in the day, they're not little old ladies there no more. But this borough saw that they got a low interest loan. They worked collectively for them who they needed to, do something with their sidewalks. And they got good sidewalks down there. I got good sidewalks on my street. I don't know where you folks is walking because I don't want to walk uptown. I drive when I go up there or go through there. But also the fact I'm concerned that we have to enforce things because we no longer have a lot of native or single homeowners. We have landlords. And I don't care what bill they get. I don't care who they are. And a lot of you realtors are selling to landlords because I'm keeping track of. And so I could care less what they have to pay to have something. Homeowner can always sell his house as is. That's not taken out of America yet.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Any other comments?
Thanks. Hi, I am Patrick McKenna again, 216 Center Street. So first, I just wanted to say I'm glad that the borough is taking the condition of sidewalks seriously. I think it's really important. I did buy my house about 2 years ago. The sidewalk probably would not currently pass a borough inspection, but it made it through the permitting process when I bought the house. Just to kind of go through the process a little bit, if I wanted to go through that project now and replace a sidewalk, I'd have to go and educate myself to the borough standards on sidewalks. I'd have to get like 2 or 3 quotes from contractors. The quotes are probably going to differ drastically in both method of construction and pricing. Then I'm going to have to schedule the work and hope that the contractor doesn't rip me off. All this could be really time consuming for a lot of people who are busy these days. It's my understanding that when the borough gets roads paved, we bid those out as a part of a municipal co-op along with some of the surrounding townships. I'm just wondering if the borough's ever considered that for sidewalks as maybe a benefit to homeowners. Could the borough maybe vet, 2 to 4 different contractors, get maybe a fixed price based on square foot? And then when you send those violation notices, you could also provide a contacts for contractors along with, what the expected pricing should be. I think this could help, improve the overall quality of the work on the sidewalks if we know it's going to be met to the minimum standards. I've always found that if you want people to comply with something, making it easier is the best thing to do. So if I could just call somebody up and write a check rather than do all this research, I think that would be great. And I don't know if it would work out like this, but it could potentially save residents money if we're bidding in bulk and these companies could send out one truck and maybe do 3 or 4 houses in the neighborhood instead of having 20 companies all come out doing it individually.
Thanks, Patrick. Good comments. 2 last comments, one in the back and Ms. Samuel.
That is something we've definitely considered as well.
Hi, Barry Hazard, 332 South Broad. I haven't moved in the past half hour. We got a violation for some overgrowth near the sidewalk, which it's fine. But what I would like to see, I think there was a week's, I'd love to see it 2 weeks. A lot of people, especially in the summer, go away for 10 days, 2 weeks. And you get back and suddenly you have 24 hours to remedy something that, you might need help with. But I also thought it might be a good idea if you could photograph what you see or perceive as a violation. And when you come back here, print it out, put it in an envelope, mail it to the homeowner. So they know exactly what you're citing as a violation, if that could be done.
On top of that, we do have an app where you can submit your concerns, and it can also be used vice versa. So that is something where we could post the pictures on there, I believe. Sunny could correct me if I'm wrong, but we could post the pictures on there and then you could see the pictures that we're talking about and it'd be sent to you via email. And that way you can follow up on the process of where the notification is or where your complaint is.
And right over here.
Thanks, Jen Samuel. Kyle, I'm just assuming that you're working also with the Shade Commission on what trees need preservation and if they do need trimming, that is not being done at the tree's expense, if it's been recognized as historic and important to the borough. Thank you.
Yeah, we work with our Shade Tree Commission.
Actually met with them about 1.5 years ago. I think Rachel was there and Rob as well, because it's the competition almost sometimes between trees and roots growing and pushing a sidewalk out. And I think the ultimate answer was safety trumps the tree. I mean, it's you don't want to get rid of beautiful trees, but on the other side, you want to make sure that it's safe to walk around the borough as well. Lexi, what else? You want more comments? We can get them, that's for sure.
What's inspected, just we would clarify that in our ordinance, just making sure that people know what we're looking for. The depth difference, the spalling of the cracks, all of that would be spelled out. So there's no confusion whether or not their sidewalk would pass or not. Currently that is not in the code. The policy for inspections, penalty for noncompliance, and then how often the inspections are. So all of this is up for discussion still. Nothing is in writing, and so I'm taking everyone's comments into consideration.
You got a few of them.
Yeah.
Any last comments?
Let's see, the pre-read had fifth question was about having a fund.
Yes, so that was one topic that we discussed, was possibly having a sidewalk rebate program. So under this program, the borough can allocate funds to a sidewalk repair fund and issue refund checks to residents who repair their sidewalks. So it'd be up to a certain square footage, say $5 a square foot. That resident would then get a refund check for however much square footage they do to repair their sidewalk, kind of a buy-in of the borough. There's just some figuring out where those funds could come from, how we could get those funds, and if it's something that would be useful to the borough.
I mean, if we're gonna fine people. At
We
some
would use,
point,
yeah,
putting the funds
the fines,
into.
yeah, could go into
there
the
and
fund.
then
Yep.
Potentially maybe with some grants.
Does the council support Lexi and team working to develop a revised ordinance based on the comments that we've heard and given her?
Yes, you've done a great job and shown us where some of our missing information is and getting that clearer for everybody.
Bob Juan has a.
Quick question. For the sidewalks, who's gonna pay, the landowner or the renter?
The landowner, yeah.
So any council member not support Lexi developing this to do a revised ordinance going forward? I'm assuming it's not, so please go ahead. I'm assuming it's not a Wednesday meeting agenda item, or is it?
No, that would be July.
Future meeting,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, understandable. Thank you very much, Lexi, appreciate the work. Thanks for the comments, it's very helpful. A couple more items, we'll try to work through them. Consider the planning commission's recommendation for subdivision of 726 Taylor Street. Is that Mr. Froning or Kyle?
Yeah.
Or Alex?
This is a lot on Taylor Street. Currently, it's a single-family home on a fairly large lot. The homeowner wishes to divide the lot in two on the perspective of building a second single-family home on the other plot. The Planning Commission reviewed the Pannoni report and also the Chester County Planning Commission report on the subdivision plan. There are a number of items that need to be corrected. The applicant will correct those and make those available to the zoning office. We recommend a conditional approval on the subdivision plan based on the fact that all the items within the reports will be corrected before the application is presented again. The one caveat is that the homeowner will not be allowed to build until there is available sewer and water connection based on the fact that the East South Street pumping station is over capacity. So they're kind of in limbo until whatever happens between the borough and the township happens.
Thank you very much. Council comment? There we go.
No, there's a sidewalk.
No, they're not required up in that section. And that'll be part of the discussion is whether or not the zoning will require sidewalks on Taylor Street.
Is there an idea of when the sewer upgrade might happen?
Rob, is there a timetable on that upgrade?
It's in the works. It's not that it's that far away, that this is putting the cart way before the horse.
Right, I mean, within the next year, we should have, and that for sewer pump station. But that also means that we have to look at these too. We have a fund for the sewer piping because from the old one. But it is funded.
Okay.
Any other comment, council? Mr. Torres or Mr. Castro, the applicants here, want to say anything? Okay. So the question for the council is, do you support a motion to approve the preliminary final subdivision plans? I'll read this into the record, Rachel, for 726 Taylor Street, and to approve the waivers from sections 18.8A sketch plan requirement, 18.8B, and C2 to submit as a preliminary final subdivision plan. 1810A6 plan lettering, 1810D10 preliminary grading plan, but to deny the waiver from section 18-33 placement of concrete monuments. Such relief is conditioned on the applicant submitting revised plans to address all items referenced in the Pannoni Review Letter dated May 20th, 2024, subject to the approval of the borough engineer, as well as for the applicant taking any and all necessary measures to provide public water and sewer for the site. Any opposed to putting that on a consent agenda? It will be on the consent agenda. Thank you. Next item is to consider the Advisory Commission on Latino Affairs invitation to an elected official from Toluca, Mexico,
Sure. So this recommendation comes from our advisory council, which Councilmember Fight is part of. So feel free to add to this. They met last week and recommended this move forward. Our junior council member Juan spent some time in Toluca, Mexico over the last 10 months or so, and has tried to build potential future partnership with them. So this is a invitation to an elected official from Toluca. To be clear, this is connected to no commitment by the borough of funds or future projects. It's simply an invitation to someone who's expressed interest in working with us.
Thank you, Kyle. Juan, is there anything you wanted to add?
Talk to us about potential projects in collaboration. And I shared it with Cola, and we with unanimous recommendation to see if Borough Council approves the plan invitation to Mr. Carmona, Councilman of Toluca.
We know it's a passion project for you, Juan. Thanks very much. Any council comment or mayor comment? Anyone in the audience?
The risk is that in a couple of years, it's a document that doesn't do anything. So that's on the risk. The upside is this is an invitation.
Any other comment? Any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thanks for your work on this, Juan and Ellie. Next item is consideration of the bills through May 8th in the total amount of $2,458.29. Any discussion? Any questions? The Finance Committee reviewed it at the last meeting and recommended this be approved. Any objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you. It will be. A couple more items. Council meeting minutes from May 6th. Any comments on the May 6th minutes? I had a couple of minor edits, typos, sorts of things that I gave to Rachel. They're incorporated already. Any objection to putting the May 6th minutes on the consent agenda? Thank you very much. And May 8th minutes, same question. Any objection? Any questions? They will be on the consent agenda. Thank you very much. And in closing, any final comments from any council member? Mr. Manager?
Nothing.
Mr. Mayor? Wednesday night's meeting here, 7 o'clock. We'll get through the business, and we have 3 guest speakers that are integral to what goes on in the borough. The first is Ms. Stephanie D'Amico. She's the Executive Director of the Kennett Senior Center, just to kind of share what's going on, the key programs they have, what support, help they need from the borough, and vice versa. Second is Brad Piper, who's the President of the Board of Trustees for the Kennett Library. Same agenda overall. They'll speak max 10 minutes and then be open to any questions that anyone has. The third speaker is Mr. Mark Tracy, who's the Chief Financial Officer of the Kennett Consolidated School District. He'll be there as well. Hope you can join us on Wednesday unless there's any other comment. Excuse me, public comment. You're absolutely right, John. Thank you. Sir? Yes, it is. A maximum of 4 minutes. If you can keep it under there, considering it's almost 9, we'd
I'm
appreciate
trying to
it.
do this in one.
All right. fair enough.
So a week or 10 days ago, I think there was a single car accident on South Mill Road. Peter Thomas, 630 Magnolia Court. Thank you. Single car accident on South Mill Road between Magnolia Court and McGowan Alley. And I don't have the details of the accident, but it reminded many of the residents down there of the safety proposal that we brought to the board in late 2003, highlighting the stop signs that are on Mulberry traveling west. Also the speed limits in the alleys, McCowan Alley and Zuma Alley. And finally, a crosswalk for the mailbox.
That was all proposed to, by public safety. I think we approved all those, but I think there was an issue with Public Works as far as acquiring all the signage that was needed for it, and I don't know where it stands at this point in time.
Rob, can you answer that or?
So it's just a reminder that those safety issues are still foremost, especially since some car just really went crazy on South Mill.
So the signs on the alley are.
I think we had
Limits
brought
responsibility?
it back to council to lower the speed limit, to put a posted speed limit sign of 10 miles per hour, I believe. And a few other changes right to that area with signage wise.
John, go ahead, but council, there's one other item we do have to cover, and that's the zoning hearing board discussion. So before we leave, John?
Okay. John Thomas, 406 South Broad Street. I've been playing catch up here, but because I've been gone for so long. But first thing I'd like to say is I agree with the condolences you gave out tonight. Tommy Laverty was married to my cousin, and I've known him all my life, or his life, because he's younger than I am. And a good man. And Louis Manuel, I've known him all my life. And he's a good man. And they both will be very missed. I had occasion to look up some things, and I have some questions, or just maybe not questions, just concerns. I wanted to know what, we're a town of 5,200 people. Small town, 1 mile square. We have an annual salary budget of almost $4 million. We have 18 people making over $100,000 a year in this borough. Our budget is $6 million. $4 million is spent on salaries. Plus we have taxes for the library, fire. I mean, it doesn't cover it all. We have taxes for water, sewer, and trash, which when I was growing up here, we didn't pay for. It was included in our budget. We're paying, the property owners in this town are paying for everything, everything. And we're not getting the benefits. So, I mean, we have 18 people making over $100,000 a year. 4 people making over $90,000 a year. 4 people making over $80,000 a year. And 5 people making over $70,000 a year. And then we have a couple part-time people. When you start looking at that budget, we got to do something about this. You can't keep charging property owners just to pay people's salaries. Or we need a review, because nobody ever gets fired. Nobody ever gets demoted. And this doesn't count overtime. This doesn't count overtime. So, I mean, there's something wrong here. And it's got to be straightened out. The other thing is, I looked at the contract for Marshall Street. There's something wrong there too. Nobody's working that place. Do you know they have over $1 million mortgage on that property? Over $1 million mortgage on that property, and nothing's going on. And then who's got the mortgage? Bontrager. I think these people were straw buyers. And if they are, then they went around the law to get somebody that wanted this place. The place was appraised at almost $600,000, and we sold it for $4. We bought it for $920,000 and put $300,000 in it. We had over $1 million in that Marshall Street property. We sold it for $400,000. We didn't even sell it for what it was appraised at. There's something wrong here. Now, and then I don't know why you got something in there about parking lot or parking spaces in this contract. Whoever writes these contracts is crazy. I wrote contracts for 50 years, didn't put all this crap in there. You might say it's covering you, but this is crap in here. But, I just read this contract, and I don't know who owns that property. And the last thing I'm going to tell you is that you people keep being so smart You go ahead and keep holding your private meetings about MDF with your three people, dividing them up. Somebody's gonna come in and take your jobs. Because I tell you, you can't be making behind the scene deals. And Bob, you're great for this because you like everybody. You like that power. You figured out a way, and I know you did. You figured out a way to have these private meetings without having a quorum there. But you can't do it. You can't hold secret meetings, make your deals, and then come and present it to council. The public can just go ahead and do it. Somebody's going to get in trouble one of these days.
I'll respond that there's no secret meetings going on that are yes, that are beyond what is legal and what the council should be doing. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any other public comment?
So I just lift this up to take us off. Not strong enough. I want to speak to the Marshall Street thing because there are signs, the parking on the parking lot. I can agree with John to some extent, on that parking lot. Those residential or whatever private parking signs are up, and I complained about them and I see them down. There's supposed to be meters there. We're broke here. We need to get all revenue we can, just like we need to get it from those parking spaces across from the market place that says residential parking and there's no residences there. We need to make money in this town. If you're going to invite all these people from West Hell, we need to get money from their pockets. So we need those meters back on there. We don't need them part of a contract where the folks here said no to 5 spaces. And John, how many spaces did you tell me that was in there? Agreed, 9? That Airbnb boutique should not have an exceptional privilege of having those parking spaces. They should be for the general public and for all those businesses to profit because they have people who come as their customers. We already let that furniture store usurp what was already ours by adverse possession. If it was a lie, you would have took me to court on it, but you didn't, okay? And we heard you asked all the questions to give it to them. They didn't ask for some of those things that was asked. I was right here when somebody from council did it. My other thing is the handicap things you built down by what I call Old Evelyn's store, that would be Cypress Street and Willow. And they have like a gutter. And I saw 2 places, but I couldn't have time to look because I didn't want to wreck, okay? A person with a wheelchair that's wider than that gutter can't use that curb. We have 2 blind people in this town that need a free base to be able to use their cane to get through. I don't know what that contraption is or what you think that it monitors or prevents, but it's not ADA regulation. And I am telling you, as soon as a handicapped person reports that, I'm handicapped. As soon as somebody reports that, the lawyer fly by night will be here because that's what they make money of all over America right now. We never heard the SOAR. We've been SOAR. We've been waiting for the SOAR presentation for about 10 years now. Nate quit, never heard it. I took 12 people with me up to the meeting at Genesis. Kennett Township sitting up there with our people and they wouldn't present it. Then they quit. Then the new guy wouldn't say anything. The SOAR is the public's fund. There's been no time in this town that there hasn't been a general meeting with abundant citizens' comments because it's our money, not yours to do with and manage something for a bunch of conglomerate people who border our town and in our town. ADU and short-term rentals, same thing. Same thing. So we can't split hairs on that. Grass cutting, again, it is a lot of landlords in this town. And that month you have, don't you have a month somebody told us about, but anybody who's the average Joe don't know about it, where you can grow your grass high enough to make a jungle and not cut it down. Our street has always been beautiful. It has always had manicured lawns and it looked ridiculous. And the people who said they bought Marshall Street live on that street and their house was one that looked ridiculous. You cannot have a fun day or an exemption day on an ordinance. Ordinance says we have to cut our grass. We cannot have that, whatever people think they're getting. So that's all I gotta say.
Charla, that's your 4 minutes.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Rob, are the sidewalks built to required specs? Can you
Nope,
can you respond to
nope, No
that?
matter what you say, because you can't get a wheelchair through there. You cannot get a wheelchair through there. If you're blind, you can't go through there. There's all kind of handicaps.
Thank
And
you,
every
Ms. Watson.
wheelchair is not 2 feet or 3 feet.
Thank you.
Set it on the sides of the purse, so you can't all ask them no crazy questions.
Rob, I'm going to ask you a crazy question. Are they built to spec? Willow and Cypress.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. You keep saying it.
Thank you. We have one more piece of business, unless there's any other public comment. We have one,
Can I clarify after?
yeah.
Just very quickly, I just want to talk about the pharmacy that just closed, the Rite Aid. My understanding is that the landowner on Mill Road there in Baltimore Pike, that he did not extend his lease with Rite Aid. And what I've heard is that it's going to become parking for the new Kennett Square Apartments. Can you guys and ladies tell the public anything you know about the future of that site?
I haven't heard that.
Lexi, anything come through your office? Yeah, we've not heard it, but we can certainly look into that. Absolutely. So there's Kyle, you had a comment?
Just a couple quick clarifications. We're always evaluating where our compensation is. And I think the data you're probably referring to has benefits in it as well, which is a significant portion of that. But we're constantly checking if we're below or above. And I can tell you, we struggle to keep up with not only the townships around us, they're a little different, but also the area boroughs. So it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. If you index where those individual people are and you index our total amount per staff, we typically have the lower end of both of those things. So we are constantly looking at that. And in terms of Marshall Street, that did go through a public bidding process. This was not given to someone. It was a public bidding process, and the final contract was voted on in public. So we got as much as we possibly could for that building because we need every dollar we can get.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Last item was really what we added to the agenda earlier on. Mike, can you give us a short version of what the issue is?
So the issue is it'd be consideration for the council to intervene in the land use appeal was filed by the O'Hara applicants in their appeal from the zoning hearing board decision. That makes the borough a party in that appeal and gives us the ability to back up the ZHB and otherwise participate.
Does any council person have a question or an objection to the council becoming a party in that issue? Thank you very much. I know it's been a long meeting. I lose most of my bonus when I run over 9 o'clock. Is that right, Matt? So thanks. We're adjourned. Thanks very much.